The desert wind howled across the cracked asphalt of the roadside gas station, carrying the faint scent of diesel and sun-baked earth. It was just past midnight, the kind of hour when the world felt empty, save for the occasional rumble of a semi-truck barreling down the highway. Neon lights flickered over the pumps, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts. In the midst of it all, a small figure huddled against the convenience store wall, a girl no older than 8, her flip-flops caked in mud, thin arms wrapped tightly around a crumpled sheet of paper pressed to her chest like a talisman. Ayla Kim's eyes, wide and shadowed with fear, darted from the cluster of rough-looking truckers laughing inside to the line of cars pulling in for quick fills. She was alone, utterly alone, her dark hair tangled and streaked with dirt, as if she'd run for miles through the night. No parent, no guardian, just the quiet terror of a child who'd slipped away from something unspeakable, her small frame trembling not from the chill, but from the weight of what she'd left behind. If this story's already gripping you, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got a tale of quiet courage unfolding that you won't want to miss. Ayla's gaze skipped over the burly men in flannel shirts, their voices booming with crude jokes, and landed on the lone figure at the far pump. He was the last person anyone would approach, Ronan Grave Dyer, 43, broad-shouldered and scarred from years on the road. His leather cut bore the faded patch of the Iron Vow MC, a symbol of old oaths and unbreakable bonds. Ronan's face was a map of hard lines, his salt and pepper beard framing eyes that had seen too much to soften easily. He leaned against his matte black Harley, fueling up after a long ride from the club's compound up north, his mind on the quiet life he'd carved out after the war. Strangers didn't talk to him, he preferred it that way. The air around him hummed with the low growl of his bike cooling down, the metallic tang of gasoline sharp in the night. But Ayla didn't hesitate. She pushed off the wall, her bare feet padding softly across the lot, dodging a puddle of spilled oil that gleamed under the lights. The truckers inside barely noticed, too wrapped up in their own world. She stopped a few feet from Ronan, her small hand clutching the paper so tightly her knuckles whitened. He glanced down, his pump clicking off mid-flow, and for a moment the world narrowed to just them, the distant hum of the highway fading, the wind pausing as if holding its breath. "Mister," she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the night, accented with the soft lilt of someone far from home. She didn't cry or beg. There was a fierce determination in her stance, like a cornered animal deciding to trust one last time. Ronan straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag from his pocket, his expression unchanging but his eyes sharpening. Kids like her didn't just appear out of nowhere at places like this. He scanned the lot, no one watching, no car idling suspiciously. She extended the paper, her arm trembling but steady. "Please, look." Ronan took it, unfolding the creased sheet with calloused fingers. The drawing was child's work, crayon lines bold and uneven, a yellow house under a lopsided sun, a tree with branches twisting like arthritic fingers, a scruffy dog wagging its tail by the door. Innocent enough until his gaze hit the corner, a stark red symbol, a jagged circle with a slash through it, like a warning carved in blood. He knew it instantly. The mark of the Shadow Runners, a low-life crew that operated in the shadows of the border towns, signaling spots ripe for their dirty trades. But it was the bottom of the page that stopped his heart, a rough sketch of a basement, a tiny window like an eye peering out, and behind makeshift bars, 2 small stick figures huddling together, scrawled at the top in wobbly letters, "Not a game." The world tilted. Ronan had seen that symbol before years ago, when the club had stumbled on a tip about a rundown warehouse. They'd passed info to the badges, only for it to vanish into the system, hushed up by strings pulled from higher up. Faces like those in the drawing haunted his dreams, echoes of promises he'd made to fallen brothers. Protect the innocent no matter the cost. He knelt to Ayla's level, his voice low and gravelly. The first words he'd spoken to a stranger in months. "Kid, where'd you get this?" She pointed vaguely east, toward the dark stretch of highway vanishing into the night. "They took my brother. Said we'd go to a better place. But it's not. I ran. The van. It's white. Over there." Her eyes flicked across the road, where a nondescript white van sat under a flickering street lamp. Its plates muddied, engine idling like a predator waiting. Ronan's mind raced, pieces clicking into place. This wasn't random. It was a thread pulling at old wounds. He pulled out his phone, thumbing a quick call to an old contact. Sergeant Hale, retired, but still owed the club for pulling his kid out of a scrape years back. "Hale, it's grave. Got a situation. Kids in play. Shadow mark. Need eyes on the wire, quiet." Hale's gruff voice crackled back, promising discretion, but Ronan wasn't waiting for the law. He fired off a group text to the Iron Vow chain. "Crisis, child in hand, shadow runners hit, 100 men, full muster, gas stop off 17, now." The response was immediate, pings lighting up his screen like fireworks. Brothers from the compound, scattered riders converging. Within minutes, the first roar shattered the quiet, a single headlight piercing the dark, then another swelling into a convoy. Harleys, choppers, the thunder of engines rolling in like Judgment Day. 50 bikes became 70, then pushing toward 100, leathers gleaming under the station lights, faces set in grim resolve. Ayla watched, wide-eyed, as the lot filled with the club's ranks, veterans like Jax Forge Harlan, who carried shrapnel from the same war that scarred Ronan, and Jolie Rivas, the paramedic with steady hands and a healer's heart, who knelt beside the girl with a blanket and a gentle word. "You're safe now, honey, we're here." No questions yet, just protection. The family you choose, wrapping around the one who needed it most. Ronan mounted his bike, the drawing folded into his vest, like a vow, renewed. The van across the road stirred, tires crunching gravel as it pulled out slow, unaware of the storm gathering. "We tail 'em," he said to Jax, who nodded, revving his engine. "No guns, no noise. Get the lay, then call it." Ayla climbed onto Jolie's bike, secured with a spare helmet too big for her, clutching the paramedic's waist as the group split, half shadowing the van at a distance, the rest forming a protective ring around the girl. The highway swallowed them, tail lights stretching into the night like a promise, etched in chrome. What started as a child's desperate plea was unraveling into something bigger, a stand against the shadows that preyed on the vulnerable. Ronan felt the old fire stir, the weight of oaths long buried. For Ayla, for her brother, for the ghosts of cases gone cold, the iron vow would ride, and this time the silence of the corrupt would break. The highway unspooled like a black ribbon under the moon's pale gaze. The Iron Vow's convoy, a low thunder rolling in formation. Ronan led the tail on the white van, keeping 3 vehicles back. Enough distance to blend with the sparse night traffic, but close enough to catch the glint of its taillights reflecting off faded billboards. The air rushed past, thick with the scent of cooling asphalt and wild sage from the roadside scrub. His Harley vibrated beneath him, a steady pulse syncing with the adrenaline sharpening his senses. Jax rode flank, his chopper's pipes growling a warning to any who might glance their way. Behind them, the pack stretched, weathered faces under half-helms, leathers creaking with each lean into the curves, the collective roar, a shield against the unknown. Ayla clung to Jolie on the paramedic's sleek touring bike, the oversized helmet wobbling slightly as they hung back with the support riders. The girl's small hands gripped Jolie's jacket, fingers twisting the fringe like a lifeline. Jolie kept her speed steady, one eye on the mirrors, the other on the road's hypnotic lines. She'd seen fear like this before, Kids pulled from wrecks, eyes hollowed by shock. But Ayla's was different, layered with a quiet defiance that tugged at her healer's core. The wind whipped strands of Jolie's dark hair free from her ponytail, carrying the faint, clean smell of the blanket she'd draped over the girl. No words yet. Jolie knew pushing too soon could shatter fragile trust. Instead, she hummed a low tune from her abuela's lullabies, the vibration rumbling through the seat like a promise of safety. The van veered off the main drag after 20 miles, signaling toward a cracked exit ramp flanked by rusted chain link and overgrown mesquite. Ronan signaled with a gloved fist, split the group. He and Jax peeled closer, engines downshifted to a whisper, while the rest looped to a nearby overpass for vantage. Dust kicked up as the van bumped onto a service road, headlights slicing through the gloom toward a cluster of sagging buildings. The remnants of an old roadside oasis, now a ghost town of peeling paint and shattered windows. The sign for the Desert Rose Motel flickered erratically, its neon rose wilted into a sickly pink glow. The van pulled into the lot, parking nose in to a row of vacant units, its driver, a wiry man in a hooded sweatshirt, stepping out to light a cigarette, oblivious to the shadows closing in. Ronan killed his engine 100 yards out, the sudden silence amplifying the night's chorus, crickets rasping, a distant coyote's yip. He dismounted, boots crunching on gravel, and crouched behind a weathered billboard advertising long-forgotten soda. Jax joined him, binoculars in hand, scanning the scene. "Two more inside the van," Jax murmured, his voice a gravel scrape from years of shouting over engines. "Back seats empty, but cargo areas loaded, boxes maybe. Perimeter's got a fence, barbed top. Camera on the office door, wired, sloppy." Ronan's jaw tightened, the drawing's image burning in his mind. The tiny window, the huddled figures. This wasn't some fly-by-night stop. It had the marks of a hub, a way station in the shadows. He thought of his own scars, the shrapnel that ended his service, and the vow he'd sworn over a brother's grave. No more looking away. "We hold. Get eyes on the girl first." He tapped his comms. A custom rig the club ran for ops like this. "Jolie, status." Her voice came back clear, laced with calm professionalism. "She's holding grave. Gave me a name, Ayla. Brothers Eli, 6 years old. Says they were at a park with their mum when the men in the white car came. Promised games and ice cream." A pause, the wind whistling through the line. "Drawing matches what she's saying. Yellow House was their home, but the basement, that's where they took Eli after." Ronan's grip on the handlebars whitened. The pieces fit too neatly. The Shadowrunner's symbol, the hushed case from years back. Hale had texted back. Old leads pointed to this stretch, whispers of transfers vanishing into the system. No badges tonight. They'd learned the hard way that calling in too soon let the rats scatter. This was club business now, honor demanding they unearth the truth before the corrupt buried it again. Back at the overpass, Jolie eased her bike to a stop in the lee of a concrete barrier, the convoy forming a loose perimeter. Ayla slid off, legs shaky but eyes alert, scanning the dark like she expected pursuit. Jolie knelt, pulling a water bottle and energy bar from her saddlebag. Simple comforts, no pressure. "Ayla, that picture you drew, it's brave. Helps us find Eli. Can you tell me more about the tree? The one next to the house?" The girl hesitated, then nodded, her voice a whisper threading the night air. "It's crooked like this." She twisted her hand, mimicking the branch. "And the dog. He's not real. I drew him to be brave. The men said no barking." Her fingers traced the air, sketching invisible lines. "The fence has a hole by the big rock. That's how I got out. But Eli, he's still there, in the dark room with the little light." Jolie's heart clenched, but she kept her face steady, years in the ER teaching her to armor empathy. She radioed Ronan quietly. "Motel set up. Basement access, likely under Unit 3, matches the window sketch. She's got details on entry points. No guards visible yet, but a truck's due at dawn, per her. Ronan acknowledged, his mind mapping the assault, not with force, but precision. The club wasn't vigilantes. They were keepers of oaths, chosen kin who rode for the forgotten. Jack shifted beside him, spotting movement. The driver stamping out his smoke, heading to the office. A flicker from inside, another figure burly, gesturing. Then a child's cry, muffled, slicing the quiet like a blade. "They're here," Jax breathed. Ronan's resolve hardened, the old fire igniting. For Ayla's trust, for Eli's shadowed plea, the iron vow would breach the veil. Engines idled low in the distance, 100 souls poised, the desert holding its breath as the first threads of redemption began to pull tight. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The motel's lot lay shrouded in the pre-dawn hush. The air heavy with the metallic bite of rust and the faint, acrid whiff of old cigarette butts ground into the gravel. Ronan's boots sank slightly into the loose earth as he edged closer, his breath steady despite the pulse hammering in his temples. The billboard's shadow cloaked him and Jax like a tattered veil, the wood splintered from years of wind and neglect. From their vantage, the desert rose unfolded like a forgotten set piece. 8 units in a ragged semicircle, doors hanging askew, curtains limp behind cracked panes. The white van squatted under the flickering sign, its hood still ticking as it cooled, while the driver's silhouette vanished into the office, the door creaking shut with a groan that echoed too loudly in the stillness. Jax's binoculars swept the scene, his scarred knuckles whitening on the grip. Office lights on, one inside, pacing, van's rear doors ajar, shadows moving, could be unloading. His voice was a low rumble, honed by command in dusty overseas outposts where hesitation meant loss. Ronan nodded, the drawing's crayon lines etched in his mind like a brand. That tiny window, the bars. Eli was in there, somewhere in the bowels of this decay. The cry they'd heard lingered, a fragile thread pulling at the oaths Ronan had buried under miles of highway. Back in the war, he'd promised a young corpsman dying in the sand to watch for the ones left behind. Kids like Eli, caught in the crossfire of men's greed. He'd failed then, the system swallowing leads whole. Not tonight. A soft crackle in his earpiece broke the focus, Jolie's voice measured but urgent. Grave, Ayla's sketching more. Says the basement door's behind the office under a loose panel. Red symbols scratched on the frame. She's steady but time's short. That truck she mentioned. Sounds like it's for moving them at first light. Ronan's jaw clenched, the desert's chill seeping through his vest. Ayla's details painted a picture sharper than any recon. The crooked tree wasn't just memory, it marked a side path, overgrown but passable on foot. The club had split into cells now, scouts circling wide, mechanics like Forge prepping bikes for quick evac, a handful of vets with night vision rigs from old surplus watching the access roads. No badges, no fanfare, just the quiet machinery of loyalty grinding into motion. He signaled Jax with a subtle hand chop, advance slow. They ghosted forward, weaving through a chain of abandoned cars, their hulks like skeletal sentinels rusted to the earth. The ground crunched underfoot, shards of glass glinting like stars fallen to ruin. Closer now, the office window revealed fragments. The burly figure inside roared back to the glass, gesturing to someone out of sight. A radio squawked faintly, static-laced words drifting out. "Load 'em quiet. Dawn pickups locked." Ronan's blood iced. This was no lone outpost. The Shadowrunner's web stretched further, tendrils greased by whispers of complicit suits in distant offices. He'd seen it before, that case 5 years gone. When the club handed over evidence only for it to evaporate, leaving empty lots and silenced families. The weight of it pressed like shrapnel under skin. Redemption wasn't clean. It was this, the grind of doing what the world forgot. They reached the motel's flank, pressing against the peeling stucco of Unit 4, its wall cool and flaking under Ronan's palm. A faint hum emanated from below, generator maybe, powering whatever lay hidden. Jax knelt, tracing the foundation with gloved fingers, finding a seam where concrete met dirt. Panel here, matches the kid's drawer. No time for finesse. Ronan wedged his multi-tool in, leveraging silently. The panel gave with a muffled scrape, revealing a dark stairwell descending into musty black. The air wafting up carried damp earth and something sharper, fear, sweat, the echo of small lives confined. Inside the office door, muffled voices, but Ronan's ear caught the hitch, a child's whimper, cut short. Eli. He tapped his comms. Breach team, hold for green. Jolie's group bring Ayla up slow, she's our guide. Back at the overpass, Jolie had the girl on a spare jacket. Her small frame dwarfed, but unbowed. Ayla's latest sketch lay open on the bike's tank. The motel's layout, units numbered in shaky crayon. The basement a shaded void with an X over the red-marked door. The light flickers, she murmured to Jolie, her voice gaining strength in the paramedic's steady presence. Eli hates it, says it makes shadows dance. Jolie squeezed her shoulder. The touch a bridge from terror to trust. The kind of bond, forged in ER bays and roadside rescues, where chosen family mended what blood couldn't. Ronan descended first, boots finding purchase on rickety steps that bowed under his weight. The air thickened, walls closing in with exposed pipes dripping condensation. Jacks covered, flashlight beam slicing narrow cones, crates stacked haphazard, labeled innocuous but heavy with implication. No guards yet, but a door at the bottom loomed, reinforced with a padlock scarred from use. Ronan's mind flashed to the war, breaching compounds, the moral tightrope of pulling innocence from fire. This was no battlefield, but the stakes carved deeper, justice not in bullets, but in the truth they'd drag into light. The lock yielded to bolt cutters from Jax's pack, the snip echoing like a verdict. The door swung in, revealing a dim chamber lit by a single bulb swinging lazy overhead. Two small forms huddled on cots against the far wall. Eli, pale and wide-eyed, clutching a threadbare toy truck, and another boy, perhaps 10, arms protective around him. No bars like the drawing, but chains looped loose on ankles, the tiny window high and barred as sketched. The air reeked of stale bread and unwashed clothes, the floor scuffed with signs of pacing confinement. "Easy," Ronan whispered, hands open, his gravel voice softening to a rumble. "We're the good ones. Ayla sent us." Eli's eyes lit, recognition flickering through the fear. "Sis." The word cracked the tension, a spark in the gloom. Jax moved to unchain them, his touch gentle despite hands built for engines and iron. Up top, the office stirred, footsteps thudding, a shout cutting the night. The driver had spotted the bike's distant glow. Ronan scooped Eli up, the boy's weight light as regret, and they climbed fast, emerging into the cool pre-dawn air just as headlights pierced the lot, a truck rumbling in, its grill like bared teeth. The convoy responded, engines igniting in a staggered roar, not aggressive but unyielding, a wall of chrome and resolve boxing the newcomers. Jolie pulled up on her bike, Ayla leaping off to wrap arms around her brother, their reunion a quiet sob swallowed by the wind. No violence erupted. The shadow men's faces paled at the sight, 100 riders. Faces etched with the scars of battles won and lost, standing for the promise of protection. But as the dust settled, Ronan's gaze locked on a detail in the truck's cab, a badge glinting on the passenger's dash, unofficial but telling. Corruption's thread ran deeper, tying back to those old hushed cases. Hale's text buzzed in. Feds inbound, but slow. Yours now. The club formed ranks, shielding the kids as Jolie checked them over. Minor scrapes, dehydration, but whole. Ayla's drawing, now joined by her brother's nod, mapped the next link. A warehouse east, marked by that same red slash. Ronan mounted up, Eli secured in front with Jax, Ayla with Jolie. The sun crested the horizon, painting the desert gold, as the iron vow rolled out. Not conquerors, but guardians awakening to a vow renewed. The shadows would fall, one truth at a time, honor's engine carrying them forward into the light. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert horizon into a shimmering mirage of heat waves and endless sand-swept flats. Ronan's Harley led the convoy eastward. Convoy, the engine's steady thrum, a counterpoint to the lighter breaths of the boys now secured in the group's midst. Eli rode with Jax, the 6-year-old's small hands clutching the veteran's vest, his toy truck tucked into a pocket like a talisman against the morning's glare. Ayla stayed glued to Jolie, her head resting on the paramedic's back. The siblings' reunion, a fragile warmth amid the roar of pipes and whipping wind. The other boy, introduced in hushed tones as Miko, 10 and silent with wide, watchful eyes, perched behind Forge on a customized cruiser, his gaze fixed on the receding motel like it might chase them. No one pressed for stories yet. The road demanded focus, the air thick with the scent of warm rubber and sagebrush crushed under tires. They'd left the desert rows in controlled chaos, the shadow runner's truck boxed in by the club's ranks. No shots fired, just unyielding presence forcing the men to stand down, hands raised under the weight of 100 stares. Ronan had snapped photos of the badge on the dash, a cheap knockoff, but laced with implication. Someone in uniform pulling strings, echoing the buried case from years past. Hale's follow-up call had confirmed it. Whispers of a protection detail gone rogue. Leads that vanished like smoke. The club rolled out before sirens wailed, a shadow fleet vanishing into the sprawl, carrying the rescued like sacred cargo. Ronan's mind churned. The drawing's red symbol, now a beacon in his vest pocket, joined by Ayla's fresh sketch of the warehouse. A squat building with loading bays, flanked by a chain of junked semis, the crooked tree a distant landmark, twisted by memory into truth. Miles blurred into the next hour, the highway giving way to a rutted county road, flanked by derelict farms and sun-bleached billboards peeling like old skin. Dust devils spun lazily in the distance, swirling red earth into fleeting towers that mirrored the turmoil in Ronan's chest. He'd ridden for causes before, pulling vets from the bottle, shielding runs from rival crews. But this cut deeper, stirring ghosts of the war. A convoy ambushed, promises whispered over bloodied sand to safeguard the young left in the dust. The iron vow wasn't built for crusades, but oaths bound them tighter than blood. A chosen family forged in chrome and fire. Jax pulled alongside at a fork, his voice cutting through the wind via comms. Scouts report the warehouse 2 miles out, fenced heavy, but that tree lines up. Guards on rotation, 3 visible armed light. Ronan nodded, visor reflecting the relentless blue sky. We park wide, foot approach. Jolie, keep the kids back with the medic van. No risks. Her acknowledgement came firm, the paramedic's bike veering to trail the support rigs. Trailers hauled by club semis, stocked with medkits and tools for whatever lay ahead. The convoy thinned, bikes fanning out to encircle the target from scrub-covered rises. Disembarking, the air hummed with tension, boots scuffing dry earth as they hiked the final stretch. The sun baking sweat into their leathers. Ronan led a core team, Jax, Forge with his engineer's eye for weak points, and a wiry scout named Lena, ex-military with a knack for locks and lies. The warehouse loomed like a concrete scar on the landscape, its walls graffiti-tagged and pocked from neglect, corrugated roof glinting dully. The crooked tree stood sentinel at the rear, branches gnarled as if clawing at secrets buried below. A chain-link fence rattled faintly in the breeze, topped with razor wire that caught the light like jagged teeth. From their cover in a dry wash, Ronan glassed the sight, two guards lounging by the main gate, cigarettes dangling, their postures lazy but eyes scanning. A third paced the loading dock, radio clipped to his belt, crackling sporadically. Semis rusted in a yard nearby, hulks that could hide a dozen sins. The scent of oil and decay hung heavy, mingling with the faint metallic tang of fear sweat from the team. No vans in sight, but cargo doors yawned half open, shadows shifting within like whispers of movement. Ayla's voice piped through the comms, relayed by Jolie from the perimeter. The door. It's blue, with a scratch like a snake. Eli remembers. The men talked about the big move today. Ronan's grip tightened on his binoculars. The kid's details wove a net, turning hunch into strategy. This place wasn't a dead end. It was a node, crates likely holding more than goods, the red symbol probably etched somewhere inside. Memories of the old case flooded back. A raid shut down midway, evidence torched, the club's trust in the system shattered like glass under boot. Redemption meant piercing that veil, not with rage, but relentless truth. Lena, flank the fence. Forge, eyes on cams. They moved like spectres, Lena clipping the wire with silenced cutters, the snip lost in the wind's sigh. Inside the perimeter, the ground shifted to cracked pavement littered with bottle shards and faded oil stains. Close now, voices drifted from the dock, gruff tones haggling over shipments, a laugh cutting sharp as a blade. Ronan signaled halt, crouching behind a rusted drum, heart pounding a war drum in his ears. Jax's hand on his shoulder steadied him, the veteran's presence a reminder. They rode for the broken, not glory. But then, a flicker from the warehouse depths, a small face peering from a high window, pale and pleading, gone in an instant. More than Eli's echo, others shadows in the machine. The radio crackled louder, the pacing guard answering, "Yeah, hold for the inspector. Clean run." Inspector, the word soured like bad fuel, corruption's hand reaching from badges to these depths. Ronan's resolve stealing, he tapped the team forward, the air electric with unspoken vows. They breached the side door, Lena's pick sliding home with a soft click, the hinge groaning like a confession. Darkness swallowed them, lit only by slivers from grimy skylights, the space echoing with the drip of unseen leaks. Crates loomed, stamped innocuous, furniture, parts, but one bore the red slash, faint under dust. Inside, muffled whimpers confirmed it. A hidden room, partitioned thin, holding 3 more children, wide-eyed and chained light, their world reduced to concrete and fear. No time for shock. Alarms would blare soon. Ronan moved swift, Jax unchaining with practiced care, Forge rigging a quick evac path. "Whispers only," Ronan murmured, his voice a gravel anchor. The kids stirred, one girl clutching a stuffed bear matted with grime, her nod to Ayla's described snake scratch, guiding them deeper. But footsteps thundered from the front. The inspector arriving early, tires crunching outside. The team extracted fast, bundling the children into shadowed corners, the air thick with urgency and the faint, hopeful scent of dawn breaking through cracks. Back in the wash, the convoy reformed, engines idling low as Jolie triaged, water, blankets, soft words mending fractures. Ronan watched Ayla hug Miko, her drawing now a map to the next thread, a city contact, greased by that badge. The sun beat down, casting long shadows that fled before them, the iron vows thunder building anew. Honor's ride wasn't over, it was just igniting, promises pulling them toward the heart of the dark. If this story's gripping your heart, hit that like button. It helps spread these tales of quiet heroism far and wide. The midday sun scorched the county road, turning the air into a shimmering haze that distorted the horizon like a fever dream. Ronan's convoy pressed on, a serpent of chrome and leather snaking through the barren flats, the engine's growl a constant undercurrent to the wind's relentless whisper. Eli dozed against Jax's back, his small chest rising and falling in uneasy rhythm. The toy truck now clutched in Ronan's saddlebag like a relic from the pit they'd clawed him from. Ayla rode vigilant beside Jolie, her eyes scanning the scrub as if expecting the warehouse's shadows to pursue, while Miko, the quiet 10-year-old, gripped Forge's waist with knuckles pale as bone. The rescued children, now 5 in total, including the 3 from the warehouse's hidden alcove, were shuttled in the club's medic van, trailing the pack, Jolie's steady voice filtering through comms with updates. Hydration steady, no breaks in their fragile calm. The air carried the dry bite of dust and heated metal, a sensory reminder that the road ahead twisted deeper into the web. Ronan throttled down at a junction marked by a weathered signpost. Its letters faded to ghosts. River Bend, 5 miles. The drawing's next clue burned in his mind. Ayla's hurried addition that morning, a riverbank sketched with jagged lines, a bridge arched like a predator's spine, and that cursed red symbol etched on a pier. Whispers from the warehouse kids confirmed it. The big move funneled through there, a crossing point where shipments vanished into the city's underbelly, greased by hands that should protect. The inspector's badge from the truck replayed in Ronan's thoughts, a counterfeit gleam tying back to the old case, the one where a sergeant's tip led to nothing but scorched earth and silenced oaths. Hale's latest message buzzed. Riverbend PD's clean on paper, but eyes open, feds dragging feet. No reliance on badges this time. The Iron Vows bond was the only law that mattered, forged in the fires of lost brothers and unspoken pacts. The group tightened formation as the landscape shifted, sparse farms giving way to the river's muddy embrace, willows drooping like weary sentinels along the banks. The water sluggish and brown under the relentless light. Ronan signaled a pull-off at a derelict picnic area, overgrown with thistle and littered with rusted grills, the scent of stagnant water mingling with wild onion crushed under boots. Bikes idled down to murmurs, the convoy encircling the van like wolves guarding cubs. Jolie dismounted first, helping Ayla to solid ground. The girls' flip-flops swapped for spare sneakers from the medkit, small mercies in the grind. "We're close," Ayla said softly, pointing to the bridge spanning the river a half-mile ahead, its iron frame rusted to a skeletal red. "The men said the boat waits under it, for the quiet ones." Ronan's gaze hardened, tracing the structure, trusses webbed with shadows, a service path snaking beneath where tugs could slip unseen. Jax joined him, map unfolded on the Harley's tank, crayon lines overlaid in pencil. 2 access points, East Bank Trail and West Overpass. Guards likely on the boat, maybe a lookout on the span. Forge nodded from his perch, tools already out, rigging a drone from club surplus, a silent eye to pierce the veil. The team moved with practiced hush, splitting into shadows. Ronan, Jax and Lena toward the east, scouts fanning wide, the rest holding perimeter with the children. Miko spoke up then, his voice a rare thread in the tension. "The symbol's on the boat side, hidden under paint. They made us paint over it once." His words hung heavy, a boy's confession carrying the weight of survival, eyes flicking to Eli with the solidarity of shared dark. They advanced on foot, the river's murmur growing to a low roar, mud sucking at boots as they crested the bank. The bridge loomed overhead, its shadow cool and clammy, vibrating faintly with distant traffic. Below, a flat-bottomed barge nestled against the pilings, tarp-covered and innocuous to passers-by. But Ronan's trained eye caught the subtle rock of hidden weight, cargo that whimpered in the depths. The air thickened with diesel fumes and the briny rot of the water, a guard's silhouette pacing the deck, radio clipped low. No overt violence marked the scene, just the insidious quiet of operation, echoes of the Shadowrunner's machine grinding on. Ronan crouched in the reeds, water lapping cold at his knees, the old war scars itching like warnings, promises echoed to the corpsman in the sand, to the club over beers and graves, to protect what the world discarded. This crossing was the artery. Sever it, and the bleed might expose the heart. Lena signaled from upstream, a clear path, no cams visible. They closed in, hearts sinking to the river's pulse. Jax's hand steady on a suppressed trank from the kit, non-lethal, always the line they walked. The guard turned, oblivious, lighting a smoke that glowed like a false dawn in the gloom. Ronan's mind flashed to Ayla's fierce trust at the station, her paper a spark that ignited this chain. One wrong move and the shadows swallowed more. They struck swift. Lena's zipline from the bank, a soft splash masking her drop. Jax flanked, trank dart whispering through the air, the man slumping without a cry. Ronan boarded last, deck creaking under his weight, the tarp heavy with concealment. Beneath, the hold revealed fragments of hell. Partitioned crates, small forms curled within, 4 more children, ages blurring in the dim. Their eyes reflecting the flashlight's beam like trapped stars. Chains light, provisions sparse, signs of confinement etched in huddled poses, and whispered relief at the sight of open hands. "Ayla?" One girl breathed, recognizing the tale relayed in hushed comms. Ronan unchained them gently, his gravel voice a anchor. "She's waiting, safe." No elaboration, extraction first, truths later. The barge's engine hummed idle, a escape route turned against them. But Forge's drone feed confirmed, no immediate backup, the bridge lookout dozing in a truck cab. Alarms stirred faintly as they ferried the kids topside, the river's current tugging like an accomplice urging haste. Jax hot-wired the ignition reversed, piloting back to the east bank under cover of willows. The barge grinding against mud as the team unloaded into waiting arms. Up top, the convoy reformed, engines purring low, Jolie enveloping the newcomers in blankets scented with antiseptic calm. Ayla rushed to the girl she'd named, their embrace a silent vow amid the chaos, chosen kin bridging the gaps blood left raw. But Ronan's eye caught it then, on the barge's hull. Scraped paint revealing the red slash, and tucked in a console, a ledger, names, routes, a circled entry for final handoff in the city core, stamped with that familiar badge motif. Hale's call crackled through. River bends lighting up, your play made waves, good ones. The sun dipped toward afternoon, casting the water in molten gold, as the iron vow mounted up, the rescued bundled secure. The road called eastward still, toward the city's neon veins, where corruption nested deepest. Ronan's resolve burned steady, the weight of oaths lighter now with each life pulled free. The shadows recoiled, but the ride pressed on, honor's thunder echoing promises that time couldn't erase. The city sprawled ahead like a concrete labyrinth under the late afternoon sun, its skyline jagged with glass towers that pierced the haze like accusatory fingers. Ronan's convoy merged onto the interstate, the thrum of engines blending with the ceaseless honk of urban traffic, the air shifting from desert dust to the acrid tang of exhaust and overheated brakes. Eli stirred against Jax's back, his small frame finally easing into true sleep, lulled by the vibration and the secure grip of arms that had pulled him from the dark. Ayla rode taller now, her chin lifted as she scanned the blurring billboards, the sneakers on her feet, a quiet symbol of the care wrapping around her. Miko and the others huddled in the medic van, Jolie's voice a steady murmur over comms, doling out stories of safe harbors to chase away the river's chill. The ledger from the barge weighed heavy in Ronan's vest, its pages a map of deceit, coded entries tracing routes from the border to this neon heart. The final handoff circled in ink that smelled faintly of cheap office paper and buried sins. They'd skirted River Bend's outskirts, avoiding checkpoints where badges might flash too eagerly, the convoy a ghost fleet weaving through industrial sprawl. Warehouses gave way to strip malls and chain-link lots, the sun dipping low to cast the world in elongated shadows that danced like elusive prey. Ronan's mind replayed the barge's hold. The wide eyes, the faint whimpers echoing off wood, each face a reminder of oaths sworn in foxholes and clubhouses alike. The war had taught him loss in waves, brothers vanishing into sandstorms, promises whispered to the dying wind. This was redemption's grind, not glory, but the slow unraveling of threads that bound the innocent. Hale's updates trickled in, sporadic texts painting a picture of stirred nests, shadow runners scrambling as their way stations fell silent. But the ledger's last entry loomed, a downtown warehouse district, Pier 17, dusk arrival. The badge motif stamped there wasn't coincidence, it linked to the old case, a rotten core, where protection twisted into chains. The group funneled into a derelict lot on the city's edge, chain link rattling as bikes parked in a tight circle. The medic van centered like a heartbeat. Dust settled in lazy swirls, carrying the faint brine of the nearby docks and the oily residue of the waterway snaking through the urban veins. Jolie dismounted, stretching her legs before checking the children, Eli rousing with a yawn, Ayla at his side like a sentinel, her hand in his, a bridge mended by the road. "We're almost there," she told them softly, her healer's touch lingering on a scraped knee. The air around her scented with the clean sharpness of medical wipes. Miko nodded, his silence cracking with a question. "Will they come back?" Ronan's approach drew all eyes, his boots crunching gravel as he pulled the ledger, flipping to the marked page under the fading light. "Final stop," he said, voice gravel low, the words cutting the hush. Jax leaned in, Forge rigging a laptop on his bike's tank to cross-reference the pier's layout, old shipping manifests pulled from club hacks, shadows of the web. The warehouse stood out, a hulking relic by the water, loading cranes idle like rusted skeletons, the red symbol likely hidden in manifests or crates. Guards would be thicker here, the handoff a convergence point where runners met their city buyers, corruption's grease ensuring smooth passage. Lena scouted the perimeter via drone feed, her voice crackling. 2 teams visible, 6 total, rotating. Boat inbound from the east, cargo heavy. No kids topside, but heat signatures below deck. Ronan's jaw set, the sun's warmth ebbing as twilight bled in, painting the lot in bruised purples. This wasn't extraction alone. It was the strike that could topple the pillar, exposing the badges woven in. They planned in murmurs, the circle tightening like a vow renewed, Ronan leading the breach, Jax and Forge on support, Lena slipping wires for silent entry. The children stayed back with Jolie and a rear guard, the van's interior a sanctuary of soft lights and whispered assurances. Ayla clutched her brother's hand, her eyes fierce. "The door! It's metal with a lock that clicks twice. I heard it in the drawings they made us do." Her detail sharpened the edges, turning fear into weapon, the group's nods a chorus of chosen loyalty. No guns drawn, tranks and cutters, the Iron Vows code etched in every motion, justice through precision, not the blaze that scarred the soul. As dusk deepened, the convoy rolled out in staggered waves, bikes humming low to mask their approach, the city's pulse quickening with nightfall's neon glow. Streetlights flickered on, casting halos over rain-slicked pavement that smelled of wet asphalt and distant rain. They parked in the shadow of a derelict silo, a half-mile from Pier 17, the river's lap a rhythmic underscore to their advance. Ronan led on foot, the team ghosting through chain-link gaps and shadowed alleys, the air cooling to carry the faint rot of tidal mud and diesel idling from unseen vessels. The warehouse rose like a monolith, its walls scarred by salt and neglect, floodlights sweeping lazy arcs that they dodged with practiced ease. Crates loomed on the dock, stamped with lies, the boat, a squat freighter, nosing in with a low groan. Lines tossed to waiting hands. From cover behind a stack of barrels, Ronan glassed the scene. Runners in dark jackets, movements efficient, the badgeman from the ledger's notes stepping from a sedan, his clip-on glinting under the lights. No uniform, but the swagger screamed insider, the kind who'd hushed the old case with a signature. Heat bloomed in Ronan's chest, old shrapnel twinging like a prod to action. Jax's hand signaled, go. They moved as one, Lena cutting a side fence with a whisper of shears, the group slipping into the warehouse's flank. Inside, the space echoed vast and hollow, pallets of goods masking deeper holds, the air thick with brine and the muffled stir of life below. Footsteps echoed from the main floor, runners unloading, voices gruff with routine. Keep 'em quiet till the buyer's here. Ronan's team descended a service stair, the metal clanging faintly underfoot, each step a measured bet against discovery. The hold opened to dim holds, partitioned with tarps, small forms visible in slivers, 8 children huddled in corners, eyes reflecting the team's flashlights like fragile hopes. Chains glinted. Light but binding, the red symbol scratched fresh on a beam overhead. Easy now, Ronan breathed, moving to the nearest, his hands steady as he worked the locks. Jax covered the door, Forge rigging a jammer for radios, the air electric with the scent of fear sweat and oiled metal. One boy, no older than Miko, whispered, "The man with the star, he comes at night." The badge, corruption's mark, sealing fates. Alarm stirred as the extraction quickened, a runner's shout piercing from above. "Breach! Get the inspector out!" Chaos rippled, but the team flowed upward, children in arms and on feet, the warehouse a maze of shadows and shouts. Outside, the boat's crew spun, spotting the flood of small figures emerging into the night. But the convoy's thunder ignited then. Bikes roaring from the dark, a wall of lights and engines boxing the pier. No shots. The presence alone froze the runners, faces paling under the onslaught of resolve. Jolie pulled up in the van, doors flying open to gather the rescued, her arms a haven amid the fray. Ronan faced the badgeman across the dock, the ledger thrust forward, like evidence carved in stone. "Ends here," he growled, the river's wind whipping words into the night. The man's eyes darted, bluster cracking, but truth's weight pinned him as Hale's sirens wailed distant, finally closing in, stirred by the club's unyielding light. The children clustered safe, Ayla's gaze meeting Ronan's across the chaos, a nod sealing the promise. Shadows fractured under the onslaught, but one thread lingered, the buyer's name in the ledger, a final knot in the city's core. The iron vow stood firm, engines idling like a heartbeat, honor's ride pushing toward dawn's unmasking. The night air off the river thickened with the salt of revelation, the warehouse's floodlights casting stark pools of yellow that fractured across the dock like shattered oaths. Ronan's boots grounded firm on the weathered planks, the ledger clutched in his gloved hand, a weight heavier than iron, its pages fluttering in the breeze that carried the low moan of the freighter's hull against pilings. The badgeman stood frozen 10 feet away, his sedan idling behind him, exhaust curling like escaping lies into the neon-tinged dark. Faces from the Shadowrunner's crew milled in confusion, hands half raised, their radios silenced by Forge's jammer, humming faint in the shadows. 8 children clustered behind Ronan, small forms pressing close to Jax and Lena, their breaths quick and ragged but unbroken, eyes wide with the dawning of freedom's edge. The convoy's engines rumbled a perimeter roar, 100 riders forming an unbreakable ring under the city's glow, leathers gleaming like armor forged from forgotten promises. "You don't get it," the badgeman snarled, his voice cracking like thin ice, the clip-on star at his lapel catching light as he edged toward his car. Sweat beaded on his brow, not from the chill, but the unraveling of years built on hushed whispers and buried files. Ronan stepped forward, the ledger extended like a judge's gavel, its circled entry, the buyer's name, a high society fixer tied to boardrooms and backroom deals, burning in the open air. We do. Every route, every handoff, the old case. It didn't vanish, we kept the thread. Memories surged. The warehouse raid 5 years gone. Evidence torched by strings like this man's. The club's fury banked into quiet vigilance. No violence now. Justice bloomed in exposure, the truth a blade sharper than any blade. Sirens wailed closer, hail's doing. Federal lights piercing the skyline, closing the net the iron vow had woven with precision and patience. The badgeman's eyes darted to the water, then back, bluster fading to desperation. This ain't your fight, biker, walk away. But Ronan's gaze held steady, scarred lines around his eyes, softening just a fraction as Ayla's voice cut through from the van's open door, small but unyielding. It is. For Eli. For all of us. The girl stood tall beside Jolie, her brother's hand in hers, the crayon drawing now pinned to the medic's dashboard like a banner of courage. The siblings' reunion earlier that evening, Eli's tentative smile breaking through the warehouse gloom, had sealed something profound, a family's fracture mended by strangers' resolve. Jack's moved to flank the badgeman, his presence a wall of quiet authority, while Forge secured the ledger with a quick scan to the club's encrypted drive, evidence digitized, unbreakable. The runners backed off, hands visible, the fight draining from them under the weight of the riders' stares. Veterans with eyes that had seen wars end in sand and silence, mechanics whose hands built more than machines, healers like Jolie, who stitched souls as well as skin. Miko stepped forward from the group, the 10-year-old's voice steady despite the tremor. You said we'd be safe if we were quiet. But she wasn't. He nodded to Ayla, the shared nod rippling through the rescued, a chosen bond, fragile but fierce, echoing the club's own oaths sworn over graves and campfires. The badgeman lunged for his door, but Lena was faster, her zip tie ready from the kit. The click echoing like finality. No struggle, just surrender as federal agents swarmed the pier, badges real this time, Hale's gravel voice barking orders from the lead cruiser. Grave, you sons of guns, did the heavy lift. We'll take the mop-up. Ronan nodded, the old sergeant's grin visible through the window, a debt repaid in full. The ledger passed hands, the buyer's name igniting a chain. Arrests rippling citywide by morning, the shadow runner's web collapsing under the flood of light. No dramatic showdowns, just the poetic grind of accountability, corruption's veil torn by a child's scribble and 100 engines' thunder. As the agents hauled the badgeman away, his curses swallowed by the river's lap, Ronan turned to the children. Jolie knelt among them, distributing water bottles and soft words, the air now scented with the clean bite of rain, starting to patter on the dock. Eli tugged Ronan's vest, his toy truck extended like an offering. You came, like the drawing said. Ronan's throat tightened, the war's ghosts fading a notch, the corpsman's dying plea answered in this boy's trust. He ruffled the hair gently, gravel voice low. Promised we would. Family keeps its word. Ayla beamed, her flip-flops long discarded for boots that fit, symbolizing the road's small redemptions. The convoy reformed under the downpour, rain sheeting off leathers like tears washed clean, the engines igniting in a symphony of departure, bikes pulled out in waves, the medic van leading with its precious cargo bound for a safe house upstate, social workers on call, but the club's watch unyielding. Ronan rode last, Jax at his side, the city lights receding in the mirrors like defeated stars. The ledger's final knot? The buyer exposed in dawn raids, his empire crumbling without a shot. Hale's text confirmed. The old case reopened, files unsealed. Justice flowing like the river they'd crossed. Miles out, the rain eased to mist, the desert's edge welcoming them homeward. Ronan felt the weight lift. Scars a map, not of loss but legacy. Promises survived, loyalty's fire unquenched. The iron vow rolled on, a family chosen in chrome and honor, their ride a testament. In a world of shadows, one stand could illuminate the way. Isla's drawing, folded safe, would hang in the clubhouse, a reminder that courage started small but echoed eternal. Dawn broke golden over the compound's gates, the convoy spilling into the yard like a river returning to source. Bikes parked in neat rows, engines ticking cool, the air alive with the scent of wet earth and brewing coffee from the mess hall. The children were whisked inside by Jolie and a team of club-affiliated caregivers. Warm beds, hot meals, the first steps toward normalcy. Eli and Ayla paused at the threshold, turning back to Ronan with eyes bright, no longer shadowed. "Thank you," Ayla whispered, hugging her brother close, Miko trailing with a nod that spoke volumes. The gates clanged shut behind them, sealing safety. Ronan dismounted, joints aching from the long haul, but his step lighter. Jax clapped his shoulder, Forge already detailing bikes for the next watch. The club gathered in the main hall later, stories exchanged over mugs, the ledger's fallout buzzing on secured lines. Networks dismantled, innocents freed across 3 states. Hale called in, voice gruff with respect. "You bikers! You're the spine we forgot. Case closed, but your vow? That's forever." Laughter rippled, bonds reaffirmed in the firelight's glow. By midday, families reunited. Parents' tears at the safe house gates, gratitude etched in every embrace. Ayla's mum, a weary woman with the same fierce eyes, clutched her children, whispering thanks to the shadows of the iron vow. Ronan watched from afar, the desert wind carrying closure. Redemption wasn't a blaze. It was this, quiet axe rippling into legacy, honor's engine idling ready for the next call. The sun hung high as Ronan leaned on his Harley, the compound's horizon stretching endless. Promises kept, shadows scattered, the ride complete, but in the club's heart the fire burned on. Chosen family, unbreakable. If this tale of redemption touched your soul, thank you for riding along. Hit subscribe and the bell. We've got more stories of honor and heart waiting. Drop a comment. What's your promise worth keeping?